So, over the past week, I've been experimenting with Google Stitch. If you're not familiar with Google Stitch, it helps developers and designers create user interfaces from text prompts or images. The quality is impressive and it can easily be used in daily use cases. But there's a real problem. Google Stitch gives you a great design, but it doesn't tell you how to ship it. How do you export it and turn it into an actual working app? At the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to turn a Google Stitch design into a real app in 5 steps. 2 important notes before we start. First, this is not a tutorial on Google Stitch. I'm assuming you already have a design ready. If you want a deep dive on Google Stitch itself, tell me in the comments. Second, this workflow is built for developers who care about writing healthy, maintainable, and scalable apps. This is not a shortcut. Google Stitch can generate 2 types of designs: websites and mobile applications. In both cases, you're not just dealing with UI, you're dealing with a front end and a back end. If we're building a website, we need to handle different screen sizes and make sure the UI is fully responsive. If we're building a mobile app, things get more complex. You usually need 2 separate apps, one for iOS and one for Android. Yes, there are cross-platform options that let you build both in a single project. Personally, I don't recommend that approach for long-term production apps. Now, here's the real question. What actually happens when a user clicks a button? Most real apps need a backend to handle logic, validation, background operations, and integrations. And if you want to keep any of that data, users, actions, settings, and history, you'll also need a database. But why does understanding this diagram matter if we want to build a real app? Because implementation always comes after structure. Only once you understand how the pieces fit together, front end, back end, and data, you can implement it in a clean and maintainable way. The first step is design. All of the design decisions can be done inside Google Stitch. After your initial prompt, you can generate multiple variations, changing colors, layout, images, fonts, and even the content itself. Make sure you design every workflow you care about. The more detail you put in here, the easier implementation becomes later. Don't stop at the happy path. That includes error states, empty states, and what the UI looks like when something breaks. And because this is a website, make sure you have a design for every device: desktop, tablet, and mobile. The next step is implementation. To start, take all the images generated by Google Stitch and place them in a dedicated assets folder. I also recommend taking your original Google Stitch prompt together with the generated images and asking ChatGPT or any AI agent to write a clear description of your app. But why do we need that? Because this description becomes the single source of truth. It captures the intent behind the design, not just how it looks, but how it's supposed to work. You'll use it to guide implementation decisions, align front-end and back-end behavior, and keep the app consistent as it grows. Next, we'll turn this design into a plan, and we'll do it with open source components. For web, I usually go with Shadcn UI and Tailwind. For mobile, I go with React Native. The goal here is simple. Don't build everything from scratch. Reuse proven components, move faster, and keep the codebase consistent. Also, when you plan the front end, don't use a cheap model and hope for the best. This is where you want high reasoning models because planning decisions affect everything later. Use something like Claude Opus, Gemini Thinking, or GPT 5.2 high reasoning to generate a solid component map, routes, states, and edge cases before you write code. Great, now we have our front end developed, but we still need to take care of the back end. Now we want to complete the app with the backend, but you can't implement a backend without a plan. So we take the same assets, the images folder and the app description, and attach them to our AI coding agent. Just like before, use strong models. This is not the place to cut corners. In the prompt, ask for a few specific things: tests with at least 80% coverage, a database schema that fits the app, and most importantly, a breakdown into small executable tasks. We do this for 2 reasons. First, we want to review the generated code after every iteration. Second, if something breaks, we can easily roll it back. Finally, save both the system architecture and the detailed plan into Markdown files. These documents will guide the rest of the build. Our 4th step is backend implementation. We take the artifacts from the previous step and ask our agent to execute the plan 1 task at a time. Stick to a tech stack you already know. That's the only way you can properly review the code. After each task, ask the agent to run the tests it created. This keeps the system stable and catches issues early. The final step is deployment, both front-end and back-end. For the front-end, it depends on what you're building. If it's a mobile app, you'll need to wrap it and submit it to the stores, Google Play Store or Apple App Store. That includes builds, metadata, screenshots, and approvals. If it's a website, deployment is much simpler. I usually use Vercel. It has a free tier and is more than enough to get started. For the backend, I personally work with Heroku. It's not free anymore, but it's intuitive and good enough for basic production needs. For the database, I like to start with Supabase. It has a solid free tier, and they also provide an MCP you can plug into your workflow. This is the complete workflow for deploying your app. It's very different from the promises you hear on other YouTube channels, but this is the path to a healthy, maintainable application.